Welcome to the Wellbeing Room. In this episode, I'm delighted to have with us Adele Vincent. Adele lives in Hobart with her family, and she has a PhD in neuroscience, multiple yoga qualifications, and is also an author. Her first children's yoga storybook, Butterflies Be Gone, co-authored with Lorraine Rushton of Zenergy Yoga, was written to help children overcome fear and anxiety. Their second yoga storybook, Shout It Out, it has just been released if you're watching or listening to this in November of 2024, and is designed to help young people with emotional resilience and emotional expression. Adele is experienced in teaching a variety of yoga styles, including children's yoga therapy, and integrates into all her teachings a wealth of experience from biomedical science, yoga, energy medicine, and her own personal life. Previously, Adele worked as a neuroscientist researching the fascinating topics of Alzheimer's disease, neuroregeneration, neuroimmunology, and nervous system development, which I think is extremely fascinating. And I'm hoping we can chat a little bit about that today. She's lectured in molecular biology, biochemistry, human biology, and neuroscience. With a lifelong love of learning, Adele is a sponge for topics such as traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, ancient yogic and Vedic scriptures, neuroscience, of course, meditation, and consciousness. But nothing moves her quite as much as seeing the light in people's eyes when yoga brings them back in touch with their own heart. Welcome, Adele.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Great to have you here. So, I'm going to dive right in, as I like to do that. You've got a very interesting background. And before we talk about your book, which I know I want to talk about as well, I'd love to hear more about your neuroscience background. And, it's a really hot area at this point in time. So how did you end up going down that path originally?
I was always a scientist. Ever since I can remember as a kid, I was investigating how flowers pulling apart flowers, looking inside. I have to admit, I dissected a lizard the cat brought in once when I was a kid. Um, I was always asking the big questions about how does the universe work and how does our body work and how does our mind work and I was just always curious. So it wasn't really that surprising, really, that I went down the science path, and
Mm,
I just loved. The closer I got to neuroscience, the more I was really like fascinated. So the body, the whole body, how it works is amazing. But when I got to the brain and consciousness and the mind, it was like this is really fascinating stuff. So I guess I just followed my nose, really. That's how I ended up in neuroscience. Yeah, and then I had a career in neuroscience for I think 16 or 17 years or something,
wow.
um, all up. I worked in Canada for a few years, and I worked in Queensland and Tasmania at different universities. Um, yeah, and I worked on all those things you just mentioned, like Alzheimer's disease and
Mm,
neuroimmunology, neuroregeneration. I did my PhD on the olfactory system, which is the nose,
okay.
and but in particular, not the neurons, but the glial cells, which are supportive cells in that system. And you've got glial cells all through the brain and the whole nervous system, and they're just as important as the neurons. The neurons do the firing, but the glial
Mhm.
cells do a lot.
Yeah,
They're support
interesting.
cells. They control the immune system, the inflammation in the brain. They do the regeneration. They
Hmm.
control the synapse development and pruning, and it's like so our memory, like everything revolves around it. They let the blood in because they swell and they reduce in size to create volume or less volume.
Okay.
Yeah, I could go on forever.
Yeah, yeah. No, sounds fascinating. I'm curious about
Yeah.
that. It's a real, like I said, it's quite a hot topic at the moment. There's lots of people talking about neuroscience, and you see it on all the, really big, health and well-being podcasts areas. They're always interviewing neuroscientists. So, yeah, it's a fascinating area, and I'm thank you for sharing a little bit about all that and your desire to be, to learn more about how things work and especially the brain. It's very fascinating. So, um, let's get onto your book, Shout It Out, because I think there's a connection. I'm sure there's a connection between all that neuroscience and this book that you've just written, and probably
Yeah.
the one previous as well. Um, so like in the intro, you said, this book is about emotional expression and emotional resilience. So Okay, so let's start by figuring out or sharing in your own words what is emotional resilience, what's emotional expression, and why are these things important, especially for young people?
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
I like to ask big questions.
Yeah,
Okay,
you do.
so
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Okay, so um, let's start with why it's important for young people and work backwards.
yeah,
So
cool.
um, it's important because you need to feel like you're yourself, that you can express your own self, your true self. And our emotions are so much about what we are, how we exist in the world, how we interact with the world. And the reason I wrote it was because as a child, I didn't feel like I could be that person that I was because
Mm,
it was a very materialistic society, and I felt like, I was an energy being basically. I was all into energy, and I didn't have words for that. I just had this feeling that there was more to life than what you could see and touch. But I was brought up in this society, in this family which is very normal,
yeah,
common,
yeah,
that doesn't acknowledge anything you can't touch. And if
mm,
science doesn't say it's true, then it's not true.
mm-hmm,
And that didn't gel with my inner knowing, I guess. I didn't have words for it at all at the time, and it was only through my yoga therapy work training that I sort of discovered that. Um, so I wanted to be able to teach kids or give kids an option to learn, a tool to learn about their own emotions and feelings and how to express them and how to be themselves, because I felt like I missed out on that in childhood and I suppressed it unconsciously as a way of surviving, to be safe in the world, essentially. But it did come at a cost because A, I couldn't be myself, and B, I wasn't able to connect with people properly because I was emotionally suppressed. So I
mm,
had to unwind all that as an adult and learn the tools of how to express myself. And so because I've learnt the hard way, I feel like I can communicate that to people now
mm,
because I've gone through all the steps very consciously of how to get from suppression through to like the full being able to express the full range of emotions and be myself.
mm,
Um, so that's what I wanted to help kids with and why I think it's important. As to what it is, emotional resilience, interestingly, if you Google emotional resilience, you don't really get a definition. There's no real definition in the dictionary,
yeah,
or even in the American Psychology, American, what is it, Psychology Society, for example. It's a
yeah,
big organization in the field. Doesn't actually have a definition of it either. It has resilience, as in
mm,
mental resilience,
yeah,
has emotions, has feelings, but it doesn't have emotional resilience, which
yeah,
is ironic given we all talk about emotional resilience these days. So I think maybe that's something that will come.
yeah,
So so what I did was actually work backwards to define it myself.
mm, mm-hmm,
So how I define it is that in essence, it's our ability to get a handle on our emotions and our feelings and um, to to learn from them and to grow from them and to do it better next time.
mm-hmm,
It's not
mm,
about not having them,
yeah,
not about not having emotions, because that's still, it's being human,
yeah,
but it's more about learning and growing and transforming ourselves through those experiences that we have when we have emotional upsets. We can just do it better the next time. Um, so we could also define emotions and feelings because I think they're two words that are bandied about a lot and they're similar, but they're also different.
mm,
So for me to talk about it even, I feel like I need to define stuff because I'm, science brain, geek brain. So if I'm going to talk about emotions, I want to be clear on what I'm talking about versus feelings. Um, so so the way I define emotions is um, it's the it's the energy that moves through us when we have a thought. So if the thought's a negative thought, then we'll
yeah,
have a negative emotion going through the body. That's
mm-hmm,
like the body's reaction to that negative thought. If we have
yeah,
a positive thought, we have a positive emotion going through the body.
yeah, yeah,
Now the feelings are so there's sort of two aspects to the feelings. There's the bodily sensations that we have as a result of that energy, that emotional energy flowing through us that brings up, like hot cheeks when we're embarrassed, or angry, we're about to explode, or like the steam coming out of the ears. There's a lot of metaphors
Mm.
that we use that describes those feelings that are bodily sensations. But there's also the other aspect of feelings that is the mental judgment, essentially, of what we think about those feelings we're having. So, for example, we might be thinking we're feeling emotional, like we're feeling angry. There's steam coming out of our ears, and we start judging ourselves for that feeling. It's like, why am I angry? Well, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be upset with myself. I shouldn't have thrown that tantrum. That was really not great. So there's like that, the mental judgment as well as the bodily sensations,
Mm.
and I think that's all tied together in feelings, what creates feelings. And it's circular. So one creates the other, which then creates another thing, because it's body and mind going back and forth to get
Yeah.
off each other,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. So you're saying, yeah, so we have these thoughts, either positive or negative, potentially, and that creates, an energetic feeling in our body, and then our body kind of responds with some sort of maybe physical expression of that. Um, yeah, and then our thoughts either, continue to spiral in one direction. This is, good or bad, and then we have, this building up of feelings and sensations as a result of that. And obviously,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
exactly. You said it beautifully. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, you
Thank you.
explained it really well.
That's what I was trying to explain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well,
and I mean, I'm sure we've all, listeners and viewers, have had this experience where, you've done something, you've had this conversation in your mind, maybe so you berated yourself about it, or, like I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have responded in that way. And then, you go down this sort of spiral of thinking and feeling, and yeah, and then you feel all, twisted, or, like
yeah.
contracted, or, like rage, so yeah, so there's all these
Yeah.
different things going on, and it's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Yeah, it's not, you can't separate any of it out. When you
yeah.
can define it in different ways, but it's all a big,
Mm, yeah.
big sort of, yeah, circular event.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does your book, Shout It Out, help to, I guess, interrupt that process, or help to regulate those emotions, feelings, and experiences?
Yeah, interrupting is a really good way to put it, actually.
Mm,
It's like the short circuit. How do we short circuit it?
yeah.
Because it does go out of control if you don't. Okay, so this is the book. For those who can see, this is the cover of the book. So the main character is Jasmine, and so the story follows Jasmine through her day, and it's really in three sections. They move seamlessly through, but there's sort of three parts to it. The first part, Jasmine goes through a series of emotional upsets in
Hmm.
her day. Things just happen and she feels emotional, different sorts of emotions. And in that moment, she's able to turn it around into a positive. So she's role modeling how to think positively about a situation, essentially. I could read a page as an example. That might be the best way to do it. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
that'll be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is my favorite page in the first section. I'll just show viewers who are looking. Just a
Mm,
bit of a close up briefly. Oops,
yeah.
it's reflecting, but
Great images.
aren't they great? Yeah, so if you can't see it, Jasmine is very angry right now, and she's got steam coming out of her ears and her nose, and she's looking very ferocious.
Yeah, and there's like a cloud of black smoke around, or grey smoke around her background.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
that's like the representing the negative emotion coming out. Yeah. So the story goes like this. After school, Jasmine found that her baby brother had ripped her Teddy's arm off. She made a ferocious face. Her head filled up with pressure and it exploded out of her ears and nose. Tears streamed out of her eyes and a roar erupted out of her mouth. She felt really angry. But she began to calm down as she sewed her Teddy's arm back on. She realized her brother didn't mean to be mean. After all, he was just a baby. She found room in her heart to forgive him and room on her shelf so it wouldn't happen again.
I love that.
So that's a good example of how she's got really angry, which is,
Mm,
legitimate.
yeah,
Teddy's got its arm ripped off. And
yeah.
then she's she's decided that, oh, well, he didn't really mean it, and then she can forgive him.
Mm.
And then she's made a decision to stop it happening again by putting the teddy up high on a
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah.
So that's just, yeah. So that's one page from that section where she goes through, there's like about 4 different scenarios where she feels upset in different ways, sad or
Mm.
lonely, or it's like life's unfair, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Then the second section is essentially about learning that you can take control or take some responsibility for how you feel as well. So it's not, you're not just at the whim of the world as to how you feel. You can start to take responsibility. Um, and through that process, then deciding to let go of stuff that she's hanging on to, and starting to let go of the negative emotions that she's, or the things that have built up, the baggage, getting rid of the baggage.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'll read my favorite page from this section. I'll just show the viewers first, you can see it. So she's sitting down, she's got her hands on her belly, she's got her eyes closed. Taking a big breath in, Jasmine held on tight. She waited and waited. The only thing trying to escape was the air. But in the stillness, a new idea popped into her head. If the big feelings were her emotions, then she could change them. Jasmine decided to take action. She closed her eyes and slowly let go of all the air and of holding on to the big feelings. She breathed out all the yucky, murky, mucky emotions and big feelings she didn't want inside her.
Mm. Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. Yeah. I love that it's role modeling the process of the thought and the action, and the reason behind it. Yeah. And the
Yeah,
insights that she's having along the way. That's really cool. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not telling people how to do it or how to think about it, sort of showing them through
Mm.
the story. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was trying to be conscious of the show, don't tell,
Yeah.
doing stories.
Exactly.
Also, I liked having this holding on. So she's let go of all the air and of holding on to the big feelings, because I think a thing that is really common with kids, you see it quite often if you work with kids, is that it's like a power game where kids hold on to a feeling
Mm.
like grumpiness or anger or whatever, or rage, to get back and to spite their parents or their siblings or whoever. It's like
Mm.
this power trip. And it's because they don't feel in control. They get the control by hanging on to being horrible, essentially. So it's about her also choosing to let go of being horrible. Like,
Mm.
I'm not saying that in a bad way, but to let go of being the negative person, instead choosing to be positive about things.
Mm.
And I think if parents can start to work with kids through the yoga in the book, and I haven't even talked about the yoga yet,
Yeah. No, we'll get to
then
that.
they can start to, if they work with kids while they're calm, not in the middle of a tantrum,
Mm.
with the yoga and the ideas in the book, then they can start to short circuit, to interrupt those patterns, which, for example, are destructive family patterns that set up in when kids get into those routines where they'll say negative or do negative things and deliberately hold on to, well, not deliberately, it's unconscious, but they're
Yeah.
using it as a tool.
Yeah.
Whereas the parent can start to go, oh, hang on, no, you don't need to be angry about that still. That
Mm.
we've worked through that. Or,
Yeah.
they can start to change the patterns.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, just as a sideline, is maybe some parents don't actually have these skills either. I mean, I know a lot of parents can hang on to, those sort of grudges, or, and
Yeah,
then that role models to the children as well. So I think,
definitely.
some parents might benefit from this too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's part of I mean, that's always been part of my reason for writing books. It's not just for the kids, it's for the adults. Because
Mm.
I did my yoga teacher training for adults, and then I started teaching adults. But I was also at the same time seeing kids in the classrooms and in the school playground, my own kids. And I realized that the kids' behaviors, a lot of it is a reflection of the parents' behavior, or the
Mm.
parents' anxieties, or the parents' fears, or whatever. So if we can work with the parents, then we'll help the kids. So it's very much, you have to work with both ends of the spectrum, the kids and the parents. So yes, I've been conscious that, and whenever I talk about the book, I'm like, the yoga's for the adults too. It's like this is adults yoga put in a book for the kids. It's just as good for the adults, and if you can work on your own stuff, then you'll help your kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it is also role modeling for the adults. I feel a bit like you have to tread carefully,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is good to acknowledge that, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so so then she's feeling better about life because she's let go of a lot of stuff and just decided to take responsibility. Um, and then she goes off in this magical forest adventure,
Oh, cool.
which is the imagination, but it looks like
Yeah.
it's real and kids are going to believe it probably.
Yeah.
And that's when she starts letting go of the old stuff. So there's a series of yoga poses that are really energy releasing and like yelling and roaring and crying and just getting out all the old stuff that's built up that still makes her feel bogged down. And
Yeah.
then finally, she starts to feel really clean and clear inside. So
Mm.
I'll read this page too,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
the next one, because these are like this shows that transition from going from the negative emotions we were talking about through to feeling clear, and then being able to bring in the positive, which is like the third part of the book, really, is to be able to build the positive.
Yeah.
So this one, I'll just show viewers briefly.
Yeah.
Let's read this page.
Can you just describe for people who might be listening what that looks like?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So she's been crying. She's down in child's pose, head on the ground. It's raining, which is like the earth, the world reflecting her emotions. So she's crying, and then she stops crying. The sun's coming out. The rain's gone, and the story goes slowly. She started to feel sparkly clean and clear inside. Everything looked bright and beautiful. Her eyes opened wide, and forest magic slipped inside.
Mm.
And then the next page is her coming up into tree pose. Jasmine rose slowly up, like a tiny seed sprouting into a sapling and growing into a magical tree, straight and tall and balanced, just like the magnificent trees in the forest. She felt connected to the whole forest through their intertwining roots and to the whole world through their interlacing branches. And she says, I am balanced.
Mm.
And then she says, so there's a positive affirmation that she's bringing in, how
Yeah.
she wants to feel. And she goes through a series of positive affirmations with different standing poses that help to reinforce that physical inner strength.
Yeah.
And then at the end, should we read the end or is that a spoiler?
I don't
Hmm.
know.
Two minds about that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll leave them hanging so they can
Leave them
get a
hanging.
copy and buy the book and find out what
Find
happens.
out. True. Yeah. Good point. So
Thanks
what
for
was your
sharing
original
that.
question? How does the shouted out interrupt that
Yeah.
short circuit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all that positive psychology that was mainly what I was talking about then, which is in
Mm.
there, role modeling. Then there's also the yoga. So each page has a yoga pose on it
Mm.
that in the start of it, it's like twisting out the anger, which is in the liver. In Chinese, or in the five element theory of Chinese medicine, the
Yeah.
organs are associated with emotions. So she's wringing out the liver. She's flushing out the lungs through different yoga poses. Um, then towards the center, so she's breathing when she gets into the middle part where she sort of starts learning, ideas, taking responsibility.
Mm.
Um, and then she does another series of energy releasing poses, lots of noises to get
Yeah.
rid of all that built up emotional tension
Yeah.
that's she's carrying, the baggage. And then she does a series of standing poses,
Mm.
which gives her the physical strength, but
Mm.
also the mental strength and the feeling of inner strength, which all goes together.
Yeah.
Because if there's physical strength, you can have inner mental strength.
Yeah.
And if there's mental strength, you can have physical strength, but you can't have one without the other. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's
Mm.
like good posture and good mental and good psychology. That's
Mm.
well known in psychology now that if you've got a good posture, good open chest, upright spine, then your mental state will be good. Yeah,
I
straight
need to sit
right
up
now.
straight too.
Yeah, but if you're hanging, your shoulders are rounding, your chin's
Mm.
jutting up,
Yeah.
you're going to be feeling depressed or sad or
Mm.
just like
And it's such a common
fatigued.
posture for children and teenagers these days is
Yeah.
that slump
Yeah.
from from being on their phones and devices so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All of them, but not just kids, but adults too. Like so
Yeah,
many of us
true.
on our phones. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, being conscious of that posture and correcting it, either through yoga and yoga and also consciously picking yourself up all the time when you
Mm.
find yourself slumping. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure back in the days, there would have been a teacher with the stick, sit up straight. They probably would have
Yeah.
whacked you on the back or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, or made
definitely.
you carry a book on your head. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's not considered the right thing to do anymore, I guess, which is fair. We don't want to be hitting people, but yeah, but
No.
just bringing that awareness more mindfully, yeah, more consciously being aware of our posture is really important. Mm,
Mm. Yeah, it is.
yeah.
It absolutely is. I mean, the more I learn about yoga and yoga therapy, the more I realized and personally experienced that really just really like it's completely linked. You can't separate the mind and the body. That just
Oh
they
no.
really are one. And the more you can link them and connect them and work with both the mind and the body, well, it sounds like they're separate, but they're just so not separate that
Mm,
the more everything works really well. I mean, I get, well,
yeah.
that's yoga, really, isn't it? It's the unity. It's
Yeah.
everything, mind, body, spirit,
Yeah.
everything.
I'm
Oh, and
gonna
also the spirit comes in here as well, really, because
okay. Yeah.
we're working on the physical with the yoga, the emotional with the well, positive psychology, but also the yoga, the mental with the positive affirmations and the taking responsibility, and then the spiritual, it sort of comes in right at the end,
Okay.
where we're kind of connecting
Mm,
self a bit more, and bringing in that whole beingness.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So
that. No, that's
there's a
okay.
lot going on in it. So
Yeah, it sounds
it is still a picture book with a
yep.
story
Yep.
that flows nicely and seamlessly through, and it doesn't feel like you're having stuff like psychology shoved down your throat or yoga
Yeah.
shoved down your throat. It's just there.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
So
can pick and choose.
what's sort of the age range that you think this would be best suited for? Because obviously, it could be for all kids, but is there a specific
Yeah.
age range that you're sort of more targeting with this one?
Yes, it is. It's in the bookshops. It's targeted to from 3 to 10, which is
Okay.
quite wide.
Mm.
So three years is pretty much the youngest.
Yeah.
That would be feasible to read and do the yoga with. But I've tested on my nephew, who's 3,
Mm.
and he loved it, and he wanted
Okay.
it again the next day, and he's been asking for it.
Yeah, cool.
He's loving it, and it depends on the attention span of the kid as well. Um,
Mm.
but you don't have to read the whole thing at once. You don't have to do yoga and read. You could just do the yoga, or and there's a poster that goes with it that has all the poses on it. So you can put that on the bedroom wall. The kids can self-regulate by doing whichever poses they feel like, or they can look at the pictures that they connect with that
Yeah.
help them with whatever state they're in. And that
Yep.
can change with time. So as they get older, they might do, different aspects that they weren't interested in when they were younger, for example.
Mm. Mm.
And then beyond 10, it's not that it's not good for people above 10, it's just that it's a picture book. And, kids, once they get to 10, 12, they're like, no, no, it's too babyish for me.
Yeah.
But then that's also where the poster comes in, because they don't have to look at a picture book. They can just have the yoga on the wall. And that's the
Yeah.
same for all adults as well.
Mm.
And I've
Yeah.
done this exact yoga as a class quite a number of times with pretty much all age ranges, including the seniors.
Yep.
The seniors loved it. I didn't tell
Yeah.
them it was a book. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't tell, I just did the yoga with them, and they loved it, because we all need to shout it out sometimes, right? We need to just like, rah, and just get that angst out of us. I'm beating my chest for those who can't see.
Yeah.
Beating your chest like that goes all ages. Kids love doing that. Adults love doing that. And the yelling poses and the roaring poses. People all love it because we all have emotional baggage and we need to get it out. So, yeah,
Yeah. And we've
really
definitely
awesome.
spent a lot of time repressing those emotions or blocking them or not, yeah, pushing them down. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Yeah, yeah, you're
I
right.
would
I'm not the
say.
only one.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it like having that neuroscience background, is there a scientific basis then for, we've talked about the yoga and the mind, body, spirit aspect of it, which in itself is a science, I guess, in a way. But I guess more on a scientific level, how does this book, match up to that?
Yeah, very good question. I did a bit of research in the scientific literature, and I found this really good paper that does um, agree very much with what I'm trying to do in the book. So it's called Resilient Individuals Use Positive Emotions to Bounce Back from Negative Emotional Experiences.
Mm.
So that's exactly what Jasmine's doing essentially. She's using her positive emotions, positive mindset in the moment, and also very consciously when she's doing the positive affirmations, and she's then able to recover from negative emotions and move on and learn and become more self-aware and develop herself, transform herself. Um, in terms of neuroscience, so that's more so the positive psychology side of it, very much definitely in the literature, in the, Western psychology would definitely agree, I think would be fair to say with what I've done in the book.
Mm.
Um, from the actual neuroscience point of view, you can, it also agrees in the sense that neurons that fire together wire together. So there's this little saying, what fires together wires together. So in other words, if neurons are firing, then you will strengthen them up and
Mm.
then they'll wire together. So they become a structure that is then more likely to fire again. So this is like really well understood now in neuroscience, where, for example, if you have a thought or an emotion or a memory and you relive that again and again, you're reinforcing those pathways. And the glial cells we're talking about before will prune the synapses of anything that's not working, not firing, and will strengthen the synapses.
Mm.
That's the connection between the neurons. Will strengthen the ones that are firing. So it's all reinforced. So if neurons are firing, it all gets reinforced, it gets strengthened. It's like building a muscle. It's
Mm.
like building a mental muscle. So then the next time you come close to feeling that thing or thinking that thing, it's much more likely to fire and you're much more likely to get that particular response. So if it's a negative thought, like I'm not good enough, then, and if you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, then that's what's going to pop out automatically in your mind when you go to do something else or something new or some slightly scary situation. But if you think, oh, I've got this, I'm awesome, every time you do something, or just as, just in the mirror or in doing your standing poses with your positive affirmations or, daily, hourly, whenever, thinking, I'm awesome, I've got this, or whatever it is that works for you, then you're reinforcing that thought and that feeling in your body. And then when you come to a new situation or something's challenging, that's what's more likely to pop up. And it's often that the negative might pop up like, oh, this is scary. But then immediately and quicker, the thought jumps in, no, I'm okay. I've got this. I'm awesome. And
Mm.
I've experienced this personally, which is why I've put it in the book, because I know it works. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit of contention around positive affirmations because some people say they don't work.
Mm.
Now, I believe the reason they don't work, and that can be true, is that if you haven't cleared out all the emotional stuff, that's the baggage that's in there, and made space for new thoughts, then you're still wiring unconsciously the negative thought. So if you're consciously going, I'm okay, I am powerful, but in your mind, your subconscious going, I'm no good, I'm hopeless, I'm hopeless, I'm hopeless. You're not
Mm.
even aware of it. It's in there, it's a thought going around in circles. Then there's no space, there's no actual creation of those positive reinforcement of the positive thoughts, the positive affirmation. But if you clear out the negative stuff, you
Mm.
get rid of that baggage, all the things that have built up in your life that make you think negatively, then you started to clear out the slate to then put in the positive. And that's where it's really powerful to do these positive affirmations often, because then you start to reinforce the positive in that
Yeah.
space you've created,
Yeah.
if that
And
makes
so I guess what you're saying in a nutshell then is that by doing those vocalization exercises, the yoga, that's that releasing, that is actually helping create that space. Is that
Yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
because you're working on an energetic level.
Mm.
And also you can work on a mental level as well, where you can go, so when you're going rah and yelling out stuff, you can think, what do I want to get rid of?
Mm.
And memories can start to come up of things you might have been angry about in the past, and you can start to go rah and let go of those things, like bring them into your mind, into your consciousness, and then consciously start letting them go with these energy releasing poses. So you're stirring up the energy, and then you're
Mm.
getting it out of your system. And it's just a practice, so it's not going to happen overnight,
No.
and none of it's going to happen overnight. So it's a practice of doing the yoga, doing those energy releasing poses, bringing up the negative stuff you want to get rid of, consciously doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And then also practicing the positive affirmations or the positive thought. So it's
Mm.
all 100% a practice.
Yeah.
And it's not unless you practice it that's going to make the changes. So
Yeah.
it is doing the work, but the work will work if you do the work, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that makes
Then
complete
you
sense.
get to the point where you start something new and challenging, and immediately the thoughts are in there like, I've got this, I know how to do it. And not only those positive thoughts about yourself, but how to do it,
Mm.
because you start to get into connection with your intuition, and your higher mind is working, your ability to your wisdom mind. How do you say it in neuroscience? The the executive function of the frontal cortex is working. But the prefrontal cortex is then online, because the limbic system, the emotional center, the amygdala, that's been turned off, or not turned off, but put in its place, reduced in size and in connection and in strength, because you've calmed down the parasympathetic nervous system. Sorry, calmed down the sympathetic nervous system, and the vagus nerve is active. Parasympathetic nervous system is on, the rest and digest is on most of the time. That allows the prefrontal cortex to work, and it turns down the limbic system, which is our emotional center, so
Mm.
that then you might have a little bit of an awakening, like a bit of anger or a little bit of something, a bit of an upset. But then because you've got that clarity and that freedom from being in that cycle, the negative cycle, the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part, can just go, hang on a minute. No, that's old stuff. That was when I was 5. I don't need to think that now. I'm
Mm.
okay. I got this, and these are my tools. And then that reinforces itself. So then it becomes a positive, transformative process that can help defeat itself. But
Mm.
it's always a continuous peeling back the layers of the onion, because there's always going to be more in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To get to that, critical level where it tips the other way, or it tips into the positive more and
Mm.
more.
Yeah.
But it's not a never-ending bucket, I don't believe. I think you can get to a point where you do have a lot of clarity of thought and emotion that does allow you to start switching stuff in the moment and not building up the
Mm.
negative stuff.
Yeah.
You're able to start to process them. And also part of emotional resilience, in my definition anyway, is that you start to have less and less of the upsetting emotions in the first place.
Mm. Yes. I
You don't
think
have as
that's,
much to handle.
yeah,
It
that's a
comes
really
less
good
and
point.
less.
Mm. Yeah. And the yoga will help balance that out, and the breathing,
And the
uh,
meditation,
and the meditation.
which
Yeah.
is what she does in the end. Yeah.
Mm.
Relaxation, visualization.
Yeah.
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 Beautiful. Wow. Well, I'm excited for you and for this book being out in the world now. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm looking forward to hearing some more stories about it as more and more people get their hands on it and read it to children and do the yoga. Um, I guess we were talking before we met. This is just another sideline, but about some other strategies for emotional resilience. And you mentioned EFT tapping as one. I'm just wondering if you had any other suggestions for people who maybe don't feel comfortable with the yoga, or want to explore their emotional resilience and overcoming those negative thought patterns that you could suggest that would be helpful.
Yeah, good question. Tapping is absolutely a go-to in my opinion. So clinical emotional freedom technique is the technical term for it, or tapping. It's C, little c, and then capital EFT is the abbreviation. So EFT. And there's a lot of research, a lot of
Mm.
scientific research done now, heaps of studies, and it's becoming recognized that it is at least as good as, if not better than, cognitive behavioral therapy and the EMDR, the eye movement desensitization and
Mm.
hypnosis, and all of those tools, which are well used and well known in Western psychology circles, very well established, all those techniques. Now also the clinical EFT is becoming, it's sort of reached its maturity point where it's becoming recognized and accepted in the mainstream more and more. So it's probably been around for at least 25 years. And now
Mm.
there's been a ton of, it's an exponential increase in the number of papers that are out there that show really strong indicators of, say, pain reduction, stress reduction, biomedical markers that go down, like cortisol going down, and I haven't got all the research on top of my head, but there's a bunch of things that they've shown go up or down, which is good, like in a good way, that they can measure biochemically measure in the body to demonstrate this effect.
Mm.
And it's a very simple process where you're just tapping on acupoints around the face and on the body,
Mm.
um, and saying particular statements, like how it might be how you feel in the moment or how you felt about something. And then so you can go through this process of tapping and talking, and you can do the talking in your head. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be out loud. Um, and you can do it, in the moment, or you can do it after the moment. Um, and then you can also bring in the positive as well. So if you feel like you've cleared out something and you're feeling a lot clearer and lighter, then you can start to bring in tapping on positive emotions, bringing in the positive things, positive thoughts.
Mm.
So personally, I found that to be an extremely good tool. I've used that a lot in conjunction with yoga and meditation, which are also indispensable in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, but, each to their own. Not everyone likes that, as you said. What else is there? Diet. Diet's a big one. That's a
Mm.
really big one. So eating a whole foods diet, getting away from processed food, artificial processed food, stimulants, most of the Western diet, to be honest,
Yeah.
just quietly.
Yes.
Um, Getting
Yeah.
back to, organic whole food, in season, locally grown, whole grains as much as possible, and vegetables as a basis for the diet, just stabilizing the digestive system, because we know, and it's been known in yoga for a long time, this connection between the gut and the brain.
Yeah.
In yoga, in the Indian system, and in the, like, Ayurveda, and also in the Chinese medicine, they've known this for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Science has now recognized and characterized it as the connection between the gut and the brain, which is called the gut-brain axis.
Mm.
The main nerve is the vagus nerve. There are others, but that one's the main one, which is the parasympathetic nerve that's allowing our rest and digest mode. So there's this real, it's like a super highway of communication between the gut and the brain, and the gut has the enteric nervous system in it. And it's so big, has so many neurons in it, and it is able to work independently of the main brain. It's actually been called the second brain.
Mm.
And it produces most of the dopamine and most of the serotonin, which are neurotransmitters traditionally thought of as being in the brain. Most, like 90% of them, are made in the gut. So what you eat has a massive impact on how the nervous system in the gut works, and the immune system, because a lot of the immune system is based in the gut,
Mm.
and how that then influences our mind.
Mm.
So there's this huge two-way communication between mind and gut. So what you eat has an absolutely huge impact on the mind, the mental state, the emotions, the stability of the body, both internally and externally. Because if you need that core to be working really well, to be really
Mm.
stable, really strong, and
Yeah.
the strength of the stomach and the core is directly related, like physical is directly related to the emotional and the mental, because how the strength of the core also is related to the function of the intestines and all the organs in the abdomen. So
Mm.
you can't separate them. Like I was
Yeah.
saying before, it's totally linked very strongly. Um, so so yeah, super strong connection there. Um, Lost my train of thought.
Yeah. No, I
Diet,
just think
yeah,
diet. Yeah. I think
yeah,
that's
diet and
really.
stability. So if it's calm, if you're calm inside, the
Mm.
digestive system is working well, it's calm, energetically calm,
Mm.
physically calm. There's no inflammation. The immune system's working well. There are no intolerances because of that. The blood gut barrier is working well, as in there's not substances leaking into the blood that shouldn't be in there, which causes toxicity in the body, things like that, then it's calm in there, and then the whole body can be calm, and then the mind can be calm.
And we're almost out of time, so I'm just going to start to wrap things up here. I know you've probably got a couple of things in the pipeline. Do you want to share any little, little bits about what's coming next?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've got this awesome series of tiny, I call them tiny books, and
Mm-hmm.
they're for younger children, and they're short books with yoga therapy, and they're based on habitats mostly. So like this is they're called this is a something, this is the beach, this is a sea, this is a farm, this is a whatever. I've got like 25 books so far, which I'm in the process of producing. And they're fantastic. Young kids love them, even up to 10. Just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fantastic way of getting kids to do the yoga. So it's yoga therapy and the animal noises. So some of them love the noises, some of them love the pictures, some of them love just the fact that you've got all these animals from one habitat that they can learn about. So
Mm.
they're really fantastic. I'm really excited about those coming out in
Yeah.
the next, within the next year.
Yep.
I've also got several other manuscripts and many, many other ideas coming as well. But I'm not going to go into those because
Yep.
that's down the track sometime. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Tiny Book series, look out for that.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for sharing about that. Wonderful. And to finish up, my sort of signature question is, what's one thing that you found has improved your own well-being and helps you get more out of life? And putting what we've already discussed aside, so there's something else that you'd like to share that you found has really helped you improve your own well-being. I'd love to hear about it.
Oh, that's a big one. Where to start? One thing. I think I'd have to say hands down, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Really. And I've done a lot of different sorts. I don't just mean just any particular, like don't just watch the breath, but explore all the different techniques of meditation and mindfulness that are out there because there are many and they
Mm.
do different things to the mind and the body.
Mm.
They have very different effects. And
Mm.
if people say, a lot of people say, oh, I tried meditation, didn't work. I
Mm.
think that's actually not true. I think that there's always a meditation for somebody, for whatever purpose. Like you can go in there with a particular uh, goal if you want, and you can go, okay, what's a good meditation for that? Or I feel in this way and I want to feel differently. What's a good meditation for that? So
Mm.
I've got a meditation course on my website and which goes through a lot of different meditation types and mindfulness as well. And goes, it's like a really big deep dive into different meditations, one per week for 12 weeks. And also I've got a 40-day mindfulness and meditation challenge on there as well on my website, which is a way of really starting to bring it into your life as a habit to change, to
Mm.
make that habit happen.
Yeah.
And again, that's based on some different techniques, which I found to be absolutely groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I mean, meditation, you can just undercut so many problems in life by just bringing yourself back into yourself, back to
Mm.
your own heart, your own sense of self,
Yeah.
uh, and really being able to connect with that. It's
Yeah.
just, I think it's fundamental to life,
Yeah,
personally.
it's a powerful practice. I'm actually really interested about what you've just shared about those courses on your website. I'll have to check them out and
Yeah,
do some more learning myself.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's some, without being too immodest, there's some good stuff on there, to be honest. And there's some
yeah.
stuff that I've practiced. I've practiced all of it. It's not something I'm parroting. I've integrated and practiced and embodied all of the things that I teach on there. And some of it is stuff that I haven't seen anywhere else because
Mm,
I found them in, you know, they're sort of coming up in different modalities now in different ways. And I go, oh yeah, that technique. Oh, that's interesting.
mm.
Like one that I found was an ancient Buddhist technique
Okay.
that I started practicing. Oh my goodness, this is transformational. And now it's coming out.
Yeah, okay.
You start to hear people talking about it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
interesting. Yeah. All right.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll put the link to those courses in the show notes too. And I think, yeah, people are interested in exploring some meditation a bit more deeply. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Thank you so much, Adele, for joining us in the Wellbeing Room. It's been such a pleasure to have you here, and I've learnt a lot, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers have too. So, yeah, take care. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Leah. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome. See you
Really
next
enjoyed
time.
it.